Welcome to this deep dive, everyone. Today we're tackling something I think we all struggle with, right? Information overload.
Definitely.
Yeah. Our listeners want to, really make the most of their digital workflow, and we're going to explore the PRA method and the code system
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
how these can really help. And I think what's interesting about these is it's not just about organizing, it's about really turning information into action.
It is. And what's so fascinating about these systems is how they acknowledge that, our brains just weren't designed for the sheer volume of information that we encounter every day.
Right.
It's like, trying to fit an ocean into a teacup.
It's true, that feeling of having a million tabs open.
Yes.
The to-read list is longer than, like, a Tolstoy novel.
Yeah.
It's like almost paralyzing.
Yeah, and it really does have consequences. I mean, the average employee spends nearly 3 hours every day just searching for information.
3 hours.
Yeah.
That's like a part-time job.
It is. It's time we could be, using to create, to learn, to actually make progress.
Right. So it's not just about feeling overwhelmed. It's actually about losing time and energy.
Exactly. And that's why this whole concept of a second brain is so powerful.
Mm,
It's really about creating this system outside of yourself, a place where you can store and organize information
right.
in a way that supports your goals, and then it frees your mind to focus on what matters most.
And it's kind of amazing to think this isn't even a new idea, right? Like early tech pioneers were already dreaming of ways to, like, extend our
Oh,
minds
absolutely.
beyond our limits.
Think Vannevar Bush and his Memex concept back in the 1940s.
Yeah.
He envisioned this device that could store and link all human knowledge, making it instantly accessible. I mean, we're not quite there yet, but the core idea is the same.
So how do we start building this second brain? Like, I'm ready.
Okay.
I'm ready to break free.
That's where PRA and code come into play.
Okay.
There are two frameworks that really work together to help you capture, organize, and actually activate the knowledge that you encounter.
So let's start with PRA. What's the magic behind this acronym?
So PRA stands for Projects, Areas, Resources, and Archives. Um, and it's a way of organizing information, really, based on its actionability, not just by category.
So instead of just dumping everything into a folder labeled work or articles, we're thinking about how we'll actually use it.
Precisely. So imagine you stumble across a fascinating article about building resilience.
Okay.
Now, where would you usually save this?
Honestly, probably in some generic folder like psychology or self-improvement, which is already overflowing.
Yeah. And that's the problem with those traditional filing systems.
Yeah.
They encourage us to just hoard information without a clear purpose. With PRA, you ask yourself, is this directly related to a project I'm working on right now?
Okay.
If yes, it goes into your projects folder. If it's more about a long-term responsibility like personal growth, it might belong in areas.
So it's about making information work for us, not just collecting digital dust bunnies.
Exactly. Now, maybe that article isn't tied to a current project, but you know it will be valuable later. That's where resources comes in.
Mm-hmm.
It's your library of knowledge waiting to be tapped into.
Right.
And then, of course, you have archives for things you're not actively using but want to keep for reference.
This makes so much more sense than my current system of a million random folders.
Yeah.
But there's another piece to this puzzle, right?
Yes.
What about code?
Code, which stands for capture, organize, distill, express, is all about turning information into something you create.
Okay.
It's a cycle that transforms raw knowledge into unique insights and outputs.
Okay. So we capture the information that resonates with us, organize it with PRA, but what about distill? What does that mean?
Distillation is about getting to the essence of an idea.
Okay.
It's taking, a long article, a dense chapter, or even, a rambling podcast episode,
Okay.
and boiling it down to its most impactful takeaways.
So no more highlighting everything that looks remotely interesting.
Right. Highlighting can be useful, but we need to go beyond that.
Okay.
The source material mentions a technique called progressive summarization. It helps you really filter out the noise.
Progressive summarization.
Yeah.
I like that. Tell me more.
Okay. Imagine you're reading an article and you highlight the key points.
Mm-hmm.
That's your first layer. Then you reread only those highlights and bold the most impactful sentences.
Okay.
That's layer 2. Finally, you extract just a few words or phrases from those bolded sentences, like the absolute core of the idea.
Wow.
And this multi-layered approach helps you really understand and remember the most important information.
It's like refining raw materials into a precious gem.
Exactly.
You start with a lot of rough stone and you end up with something really valuable.
Yes.
But what if I'm not sure what's truly important.
Trust your intuition.
Okay.
The source material talks about paying attention to what sticks in your mind naturally. That feeling of resonance is often a sign that you've stumbled across something truly insightful.
It's like when an idea just clicks, and you know you need to save it for later.
Exactly, and your internal compass is guiding you toward knowledge that will be most valuable for you. But remember, this isn't just about personal knowledge hoarding.
Right.
The real power comes from expressing and sharing those insights with the world.
Okay, but even with these amazing systems, don't we need serious discipline to make this all work?
Well, discipline is important, but a well-designed system can actually support your efforts. Remember that feeling of overwhelm we talked about?
Hmm.
That often comes from not knowing what to do with all the information coming at us.
So it's not about willpower, it's about having a process.
Exactly, a clear process, like a mental roadmap.
Right.
And that's what PayArray and Code provide. They give you that framework for making decisions about what to capture, how to organize it, and how to make it work for you.
And, this reminds me of something fascinating. For the source material, it seems like even top creatives rely on systems.
They do.
Like take Taylor Swift, for example.
Yes, Taylor Swift.
She apparently keeps a running list of lyrical ideas,
Mm-hmm.
phrases, metaphors, observations,
Mm-hmm.
and then she uses that as like a knowledge bank
Mm-hmm.
when she's writing songs.
Yes, it's like constantly capturing those sparks of inspiration so they don't get lost.
So even seemingly spontaneous creativity can be fueled by a structured approach.
Absolutely. And Francis Ford Coppola used a similar system. When he was making The Godfather, he created what he called a prompt book.
Hmm.
It was filled with notes, excerpts, thoughts, just a way to really organize his creative vision and make it a reality.
Okay, so even creative geniuses have systems.
Yes.
That's comforting to know.
Yeah.
But let's get practical. What are some concrete steps our listeners can take to implement PRA in Code right now?
The key is to start small.
Okay?
Don't feel like you need to overhaul your entire digital life in one go. Just pick one project that you're currently working on, something with a clear goal.
So writing a blog post, planning a vacation, learning a new skill, anything like that.
Exactly.
Okay.
Then create a folder for that project in your favorite note-taking app or, whatever system you prefer. Then as you come across information related to that project, just capture it in that folder.
And that's where the capture stage of code comes in.
Yes,
We're not randomly saving everything. We're looking for those nuggets that resonate with us.
exactly. And as you capture more, you can start experimenting with the organize and distill steps. Use PRA to categorize your notes. Try progressive summarization to refine them.
This is making me want to dive right in
Yes.
and start building my second brain. Is there anything else our listeners should know?
One final tip. Create a favorite problems list.
Okay.
Jot down those questions that you're constantly curious about, even if there's no immediate project attached to them. It's like priming your mind to be on the lookout for answers.
So it's like creating a roadmap for your curiosity.
Exactly. And over time, you'll have a wealth of insights and resources related to those core questions. It's a powerful way to shift from feeling overwhelmed by information to feeling empowered by knowledge.
I love that. We've covered a lot of ground already, but this is just the beginning. Stay tuned as we continue this deep dive into PowerAI and Code in the next part.
And it's not about waiting for some grand, life-changing project, Even small, everyday insights can be valuable.
I like that. It's about recognizing that we all have knowledge worth sharing.
Exactly. Maybe it's a helpful tip you share with a coworker or a thought-provoking comment on social media, or even just like a well-organized document that makes someone else's life a bit easier.
So we've talked about PowerAI and Code as concepts, but I'm curious about the practical side. What role does technology play in all of this? Are we talking specific apps or software? What's the setup here?
Well, the good news is you probably already have most of the tools you need. The source material emphasizes that the perfect app doesn't exist. It's about finding what works for you.
So no need to get lost in the sea of productivity apps.
Exactly. A simple note-taking app is a great starting point. Many have features for tagging, linking, and organizing notes, which aligns perfectly with PayArray and Code.
Makes sense. We can always level up our tech game as our second brain grows.
Absolutely. It's about starting with what you have and building from there.
Speaking of starting, I'm curious about the capture process itself. We're taking in information from so many sources these days.
Yeah.
Books, articles, podcasts, even our own thoughts. How do we get it all into our second brain efficiently? Any tips or tricks?
Yeah, this is where being a little tech savvy comes in handy. The source material highlights some really cool tools for streamlining this process. First off, embrace the power of your smartphone.
Okay.
Many podcast apps actually let you clip segments of episodes and even transcribe them so you can save those little nuggets of wisdom directly to your notes.
That's amazing. No more frantically scribbling notes while I'm trying to keep up with the podcast.
Right. And for articles, many note-taking apps have web clipper extensions. So you can grab excerpts from articles without manually copying and pasting everything.
Web clippers are lifesavers. I used to have a million tabs open trying to save articles for later.
And then forget which tab was which, right?
Every single time. So we've got web clippers, podcast clippers,
Yeah.
anything for those random ideas that pop into our head when we're away from our computers.
Voice memos are your friend. There are some fantastic apps out there that let you record a voice note, and then it automatically gets transcribed and sent to your Notes app.
That solves the shower thoughts dilemma. No more brilliant ideas going down the drain.
Exactly. The key is to remove any friction in the capture process. The easier it is to save an idea, the more likely you are to actually do it.
Makes total sense. But, let's not forget good old-fashioned pen and paper.
Mm-hmm.
I still jot down ideas in a notebook sometimes. Is there a place for that in our digital second brain?
Absolutely. Pen paper can be great for capturing those initial sparks of inspiration. You can always snap a photo of your notes later and upload them to your digital system.
Okay, so we're capturing all this information, organizing it with Peep-Array. But then what? How do we actually use this second brain to create something new, to make progress on our goals?
That's where the magic really happens. It's about shifting from a consumption mindset to a creation mindset. Your second brain becomes this toolbox filled with carefully curated resources ready to be used.
So instead of passively absorbing information, we're actively working with it, building something.
Exactly. The source material talks about intermediate packets. These are the building blocks of your creative work. Collections of notes on specific topics, quotes that inspire you, or even just rough outlines.
It's like Lego pieces we can use to build a larger creation.
Perfect analogy. By working with these smaller chunks of information, we make the creative process less daunting.
So instead of staring at a blank page feeling overwhelmed, we have these ready-made building blocks to play with.
Right, and because you've already captured, organized, and distilled them, these intermediate packets are packed with focused, relevant information.
Okay, so we're building up this library of intermediate packets, but how do we find what we need when we need it? I'm guessing the search function is our best friend.
Search is definitely helpful, but don't underestimate the power of browsing.
Like taking a stroll through our knowledge garden.
Exactly. Each Parai folder, projects, areas, resources, archives is like a curated collection. Sometimes it's less about searching for a specific keyword and more about just exploring the connections within a certain topic or project.
It reminds me of like browsing the shelves at a bookstore and stumbling upon something unexpected that completely changes your perspective.
I love that. It's about staying open to serendipity within a structured system. And here's another key point from the source material. Don't be afraid to remix your knowledge.
Okay, DJ Second Brain, spin those knowledge tracks. What do you mean by remix?
It's about taking existing ideas, concepts, even whole intermediate packets, and combining them in new ways. The source material calls this kit bashing, a term borrowed from model making.
Tell me more. My inner geek is intrigued.
Okay, so kit bashing is like taking parts from different model kits and using them to create something totally new. It's about seeing the potential for recombination, for creating something greater than the sum of its parts.
So we're not just regurgitating information. We're actively synthesizing it, playing with it, experimenting.
Exactly. And that's where true creativity blossoms. It's about bringing your own unique perspective to the knowledge you gathered.
This reminds me of something from the source material about the importance of divergence and convergence in the creative process.
Oh, yes, that's a powerful concept. Divergence is all about opening up the space of possibilities, exploring different ideas, gathering inspiration. It's like brainstorming, mind mapping, free writing.
Letting our curiosity run wild.
Exactly. But then at some point, we need to switch to convergence. That's where we narrow down our options, refine our ideas, and move towards a concrete outcome.
It's like the inhale and exhale of creativity, breathing in all these possibilities, then exhaling a focused, finished product.
I love that analogy. And a well-designed second brain supports both phases. It gives you a space to capture and explore those divergent ideas, then helps you organize and refine them as you move toward convergence.
This all makes so much sense, but let's be real. Even with the best systems and tools, there are times when we hit a wall. Those moments of creative block when the ideas just weren't flow. What do we do then?
You're not alone. Even the most creative people experience this. Luckily, the source material has some practical tips for overcoming those roadblocks.
Give us the secret formula. What can we do when we're feeling stuck?
Well, one technique that really stands out is called the archipelago of ideas.
Okay, I'm picturing islands of knowledge dotting a vast ocean of thought.
Exactly. Imagine creating a note with quotes, excerpts, or even key phrases related to a specific topic or project.
So like curating a collection of thought-provoking fragments.
Right. The key is to leave space between these islands.
Okay.
That empty space is where the magic happens. It forces our brains to make connections, to kind of build bridges between those islands.
So it becomes like a mental puzzle. Our brains naturally want to fill in the gaps, create a coherent narrative.
And in that process, we often stumble upon new insights and ideas that we wouldn't have otherwise. It's like giving your subconscious a playground to explore.
I love that idea. So the archipelago of ideas is one way to overcome those creative blocks. Are there other strategies we can use?
Another powerful one is to dial down the scope.
Okay, I'm sensing a theme here. Starting small, breaking things down.
It's all about making the creative process less overwhelming. Dialing down the scope is about finding the simplest, most essential version of your idea and focusing on that first.
So if you're writing a book, start with an article. If you're planning a conference, start with a workshop, that kind of thing.
Precisely. Narrowing your focus removes distractions and helps you gain momentum.
It's like clearing away the mental clutter so you can actually see the path ahead.
And here's a bonus tip. Don't throw away those ideas that get dialed down. Save them in your second brain. They might be perfect for a future project.
So those discarded ideas become potential intermediate packets waiting to be rediscovered.
Yeah.
I love how the system is all about maximizing the value of our knowledge.
Absolutely. It's about recognizing that every idea has potential, even if it's not the right time or place for it yet.
Okay, so we've explored some great strategies for overcoming creative blocks, but let's shift gears a bit. We've talked about PRA for organizing, code for processing, but how do we make this a sustainable part of our lives? How do we ensure our second brain doesn't become just another abandoned project?
That's where habits and routines come in, and our source material offers some great advice. One tip that stood out to me is the idea of project kickoff and completion checklists.
I love a good checklist. It makes everything feel more manageable. What do these checklists involve?
It's incredibly simple, yet so effective. Before you even start a project, take a few minutes to do a kickoff checklist. Ask yourself, what's the goal? What resources do I already have in my second brain that could help? What potential roadblocks might I face?
So it's like a mini planning session, but with our second brain as a trusted advisor.
Exactly. And then when the project is done, you have a completion checklist. This is about tying up loose ends, capturing any final insights, and celebrating those wins.
I love the emphasis on celebrating wins. It's so easy to get caught up in the next thing and forget to acknowledge our accomplishments.
But taking a moment to reflect on what went well and what could be improved is so valuable. It feeds back into the system, making our second brain even more effective.
Okay, so project checklists, check. What other habits can help us keep this second brain thriving?
The source material really emphasizes the importance of regular reviews. Think weekly and monthly check-ins with your system.
So like giving our second brain a little TLC, making sure everything is running smoothly.
Exactly. During your weekly review, you might skim through your notes, refine them using progressive summarization, or move things around as your projects evolve.
And the monthly review is a bit more high level.
Yes. It's a time to revisit your goals, reassess your priorities, maybe archive projects that are no longer active. It's about making sure your system is still aligned with your current needs and aspirations.
I could see how these regular check-ins would prevent that feeling of overwhelm from creeping back in. It's about staying ahead of the information curve, not letting it pile up and bury us.
Exactly. But there's one more habit that might be the most powerful of all, cultivating noticing habits.
Noticing habits.
That's
Intriguing. Tell me more.
It's about training your mind to be more aware, to spot these little sparks of insight, those connections that might otherwise slip through the cracks.
So it's a turning up the volume on our curiosity, becoming more present in our everyday lives.
Precisely. Maybe you're reading an article and come across a concept that relates to a project you're working on, even if it's not directly about that project.
Because we're more attuned to those connections, thanks to our noticing habits.
Right. Or maybe you're having a conversation with someone, and they say something that triggers a new idea. The key is to be open to those moments of inspiration.
And because we have our second brain system in place, we're ready to capture those insights before they disappear.
Exactly. Noticing habits turn everyday life into a source of knowledge and inspiration. It's about recognizing that valuable information can come from anywhere, not just from those official sources we tend to focus on.
This ties back to that idea of shifting from a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset.
Absolutely. It's about letting go of that feeling that we'll never know enough, that we need to hoard every scrap of information.
And instead, embracing the fact that the world is overflowing with knowledge. We just need the right tools and mindset to tap into it.
And with an abundance mindset, we can focus on using that knowledge to create something new, to share our unique insights with the world.
This has been such an insightful deep dive. We've not only explored the mechanics of building a second brain, but also a whole new way of thinking about knowledge and creativity.
I completely agree. It's been a pleasure exploring these ideas with you.
And to our listener, thanks for joining us on this journey. Remember, building a second brain is an ongoing process. Start small, experiment, be patient, and most importantly, have fun. Who knows what brilliant creations you might unleash?
The possibilities are endless.